I'm joined by the one and only this show off, Dolph Ziggler, rocking the pink.
Someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it. Brett doesn't do it anymore, so it's now your job.
I feel like a lot of things aren't being done anymore that I got to take over for. So
We'll
start with pink.
What's next on the agenda?
You know what's great? A nice super kick that wins a match. And I'm so happy to have invented that move and passed it down for years, and it's finally back to me.
So what do you think about that? Because it's interesting with finishing moves and stuff like that. Like if you have a match where there's like 7 kickouts of finishers, do you think that's kind of, is it becoming too much now?
Well, if it's other people's finishers, I believe that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
If your finishing move is your finishing move, only on the rarest of occasions should it not beat someone who, unless they're superhuman. Brock's a different person.
Yeah,
so remember that.
Maybe Brock. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you. Obviously, earlier on this year, you had the program with Nakamura, his first thing on the main roster, and people were really excited about seeing Nakamura come up to the main roster. How do you feel about the program? What's your kind of looking back on it now? Were you happy to work with him? Be the first guy that he works with when he comes up?
Absolutely. Like no matter where you stand and what your storylines happen to be, you know when you're put in a position for someone who they have, they're very that excited for a special entertainer like Nakamura, and they pick you to be the guy. It just goes to show the trust that the company has in me, and I appreciate that. And for someone who didn't follow his career until he got here, I felt like after a couple of live events, we did an overseas tour, we start to feel each other out, and he's someone who can actually, what we call shoot in the business. So we can kind of, him, Cesaro, and AJ, and a handful of others, we can actually do some old school wrestling in there and test each other out and see who can go. And it's really fun. He's one of the guys who can do that, plus entertain, plus do some great moves. So it's we had such a blast.
And you're kind of conspicuous by your absence right now on SmackDown Live the last few weeks. What's next for you? What would you like to do next, storyline-wise, character-wise? What's next for you?
I think the most important thing was just a little refresher from television. So I'm lucky enough to be able to still work live events, still work shows, come here and do a bunch of PR for SummerSlam week, and obviously today see some great kids. So I'm very lucky to be able to do that, and it was very cool. WWE give me a few weeks off television.
And do you think when you come back, would we see the same Dolph Ziggler? Would you do you want to revamp in any way? What do you think would be the next thing for you?
I feel like if you're not constantly adapting or changing a little bit, then you get passed over very easily. And but adapting to the business isn't always going from shorts to pants or short hair to long hair or or different moves. I don't think. I think the story, your character, tiny little layers here and there that make you stand out, that make you, if you knew me as an amateur wrestler for 20 years and the Kent State Hall of Famer, and I maybe lacked putting that in there before, maybe I can add that in more. So you constantly have to, like Undertaker did that's unreal for 20-something years to where he became the biker, and then he was back to Undertaker. So it's all about constantly adapting and changing a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't repackage anything or things like that, but I would definitely change a few things up because it's get busy living or get busy dying, you know what I mean? So somehow I've survived for 13 years just being really good no matter what the situation. So hopefully we can take it up another notch.
And this time last year, you were in the WWE Championship match with Dean Ambrose. The brand split took place last year. We're kind of like a year on now from the brand split, Raw and SmackDown being separate shows. How do you feel about it? How do you think it's been? I mean, SmackDown was kind of the land of opportunities, the phrase on TV, things like Talking Smack. How do you feel SmackDown's done in the first year?
I think it's been great. We could have had a total flip-flop of rosters than we have right now, and still I would be excited because with that split, someone somewhere is getting an extra minute of time because you don't have 40 superstars on one show. So I appreciate that, and it is the land of opportunity. I think no matter what the situation where you are, a lot of people who are great at their jobs might be sitting on the bench if we were all on one show. Or all one roster. So I think it's very cool. Even we had a few months ago, we kind of switched up the rosters even a little bit more. And we have had such a great locker room that on handfuls of occasions, guys have come up to me and said, like, what great morale, what a great locker room we have. And it just leads to our live events being that much more fun. And as far as I know, we've been doing really well on the live events SmackDown side. So it's helping people watch our show. And I feel like we've been doing pretty well, especially since Raw's been known as a flagship show for how many years? So it's pretty cool to kind of be the tiny bit of an underdog, but also, maybe for a while, the cool show to be on.
And obviously, the Money in the Bank contract was just cashed in by Baron Corbin.
Yeah.
You're familiar with the Money in the Bank contract. You had it, and you had that night after WrestleMania with Alberto a few years ago. Is that kind of your favourite moment in WWE so far, or is there another one that ranks up there for you?
I have to say, with fans that come up to me, that's their favorite moment. So it's hard to live in the past on that one moment, but I will never forget hearing my music and feeling the rush of everybody screaming into my body. It was like pins and needles on my body. And it was cool because it was a special thing, because a lot of people, sometimes they show up in WWE and they're fighting John Cena and they're beating John Cena, or they show up and they're winning the world championship in the first couple days or first couple weeks. And someone like myself, who for the most part lost matches all the time and was a bad guy, to earn the respect of fans and hardcore fans slowly over the course of 2 years doing so, and knowing that, it's exciting when someone cashes in, so you cheer whether they're a good guy or a bad guy, because I heard the cheers for Corbin last week. But to have that moment to where I'm someone who maybe by WWE standards wasn't totally looked at as a star, but by the fans who created all the buzz for me, looked at as a star, as like, we did this together. So I think I could feel that collective whoosh as I cashed in that briefcase, and what I won, it was like we all won something. And it was a very special one. I'll never, ever forget it for anything. And I'm a bitter, over it guy. And I'll never forget that moment.
And there's like a myth out there, I think, with some wrestling fans of, you talk about Raw being the flagship show of, like, Vince McMahon, maybe he doesn't like SmackDown as much, or, maybe he puts more attention on Raw. Working with Vince McMahon every week at SmackDown, on SmackDown, is he as passionate about SmackDown as he is for Raw?
I don't know that comparison that you're making, but he's there. Everyone who is like, I guess we tried to split it a little bit, but I think at the top of the boss, he's always overseeing everything. So, and if I was Vince McMahon, I would want everything I touch to turn to gold and be fantastic. So I see that. I know he works that every day. I know he works his butt off on our show. I know he works at so many other projects besides our show. So I know if he wants something to be great, he's overlooking it at every possible inch, and probably rewriting it and fixing things even halfway through the show, because I think he wants them both to be successful. And it would be cool if there was a genuine competition to be the best. And it's hard to do that when we're all kind of friends a little bit now. It's a different time. It's not WCW versus WWE. It's WWE versus WWE. So we're not stabbing each other in the back, but we're both trying to, like, hey, we're the better show, and we want to put it on that way. And AJ, who I think has pretty much been the face of our show for that entire time, it's what a great pick, because he's amazing.
Very last question. Obviously, the Superstar shake-up happened earlier on this year, and in the Superstar shake-up, they tend to bring up people from NXT. Do you think there's ever a scenario where it would be an interesting idea to have NXT be involved in the Superstar shake-up, where maybe some guys who are on Raw or SmackDown would go to NXT and sort of, because NXT is a different beast from a developmental,
Sure.
Tonight they're in the Barclays Center, sold out 15,000 people.
Right.
Is that a concept that you think would be intriguing or possible?
I think anything's possible, and just you saying it now sounded intriguing to me. So anytime you can take something that we all know and we have it, whether it's Raw versus SmackDown, or we know the shake-up's coming, or we know a draft's coming, and you can go, oh, by the way, here's this other X factor that comes into it. I think that's awesome, and I think you're right. It's not exactly as much as people learning the craft of wrestling, except for fine-tuning the craft of wrestling at NXT. So I feel like a lot of those guys are my age, and they've been around, so they know what they're doing, and anybody could go at any time, and that's a great idea, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happened.
Well, Dolph, I want to thank you. We look forward to seeing you back in SmackDown Live.
You got
Have a
it.
good weekend.